July 6, 1988. In less than 2 hours, the world's largest offshore oil platform was ripped apart by explosions and fire, killing 167 of the 228 men on board, making Piper Alpha the deadliest disaster in offshore history. Every survivor broke the rules, jumping 175 feet into the North Sea, while emergency plans turned fatal. Lord Cullen's inquiry exposed catastrophic failures in safety management, equipment, and emergency orders, all rooted in years of cost-cutting by Occidental Petroleum. This investigation is not just about fire and steel, it is about a chain of negligence where, on Piper Alpha, obeying the system meant you died. How did every safeguard fail at once? At 9:55 p.m., a fireball tore through Piper Alpha, turning the world's largest offshore platform into a furnace visible for miles across the North Sea. In less than 2 hours, 167 men would be dead, some never found, their bodies lost in twisted steel and black water. The platform, once a symbol of British engineering, became a floating tomb. Flames reached 300 feet into the air, fed by gas and oil still pumping from neighboring rigs. The heat melted steel. Paint blistered on rescue vessels that dared approach. Men trapped inside followed the emergency plan, gathering in the accommodation block above the fire, waiting for helicopters that could not land. They obeyed the rules and died as smoke and heat poured through failed firewalls. Others smashed windows, climbed onto ledges, and jumped 175 feet into the freezing sea, defying every instruction drilled into them. Of 226 men on board, only 61 survived, and every survivor broke the rules. Piper Alpha was not destroyed by a single error or a freak accident. It was destroyed by a chain of decisions, each one making disaster more certain. What began as routine maintenance ended with the deadliest offshore catastrophe in history, a disaster written into the design, the procedures, and the culture that governed life and death on the North Sea. At noon on July 6th, a pressure safety valve was removed from Pump A for routine maintenance. In its place, a blind flange was fitted, a flat metal disc never designed to withstand the full pressure of the line. The permit to work system should have made this risk visible. Instead, the permit for the valve was either lost, misfiled, or never returned to the control room board. No warning flag, no physical reminder, nothing to stop the night shift from assuming the pump was safe. Jeff Beaton, the night charge hand, faced a familiar pressure to keep production flowing. When Pump B failed just before 10 p.m., Beaton searched the permit board. He found no record of ongoing work on Pump A. The only evidence was absence, a blank space where a permit should have been. Under orders and the weight of expectation, Beaton authorized the restart. The blind flange, rated for less than half the operating pressure, held for only minutes. Gas forced past the bolts, hissing into the module. In those final seconds, no one on duty had any idea that a critical safety barrier was missing. The permit system, meant to prevent exactly this kind of blind restart, had vanished into paperwork and assumption. When the gas ignited, the chain reaction began, not with a single error, but with a system that allowed danger to hide in plain sight. Piper Alpha's defenses were built for a different war. In 1976, the platform's firewalls were designed to withstand the slow rolling heat of oil fires, not the violent shock of a gas explosion. When Occidental retrofitted the platform for gas production in the late 1970s, the company packed new compressors and high-pressure lines into spaces never meant for them. The firewalls remained unchanged, thick enough to hold back flames, but brittle against a blast. No one recalculated the risk. No one upgraded the barriers. On July 6th, when gas burst from Pump A and ignited, the pressure wave struck the firewall between modules C and B. It shattered in seconds. The blast tore through joints and seams, exposing the gas risers and the heart of the platform's process modules. What should have been a contained fire became a chain reaction. Gas lines ruptured, feeding the flames that leapt from one module to the next. Jet fires shot across the decks, fueled by pipelines running at hundreds of atmospheres. The control room, meant to be a safe haven, sat just meters from the new gas compressors, separated only by a wall designed for a different era. In the rush to maximize production, Occidental's engineers had placed critical systems side by side, trading distance and protection for efficiency. The result was a platform where a single breach could, and did, overwhelm every defense. The design itself set the stage for total failure, allowing a small leak to become an unstoppable inferno. Tartan and Claymore, two platforms tethered to Piper Alpha by steel and policy, kept sending oil and gas through the burning wreck. Operators on both rigs saw the fireball. They watched the sky turn orange and heard the mayday. But the rules were clear. Only Piper's offshore installation manager had the authority to order a shutdown. The control room was already destroyed. Radios crackled with unanswered calls. No one on Piper Alpha could respond. So the pumps stayed on. For more than an hour, high-pressure gas surged through the pipelines, feeding the blaze that was consuming the platform. Tartan's gas riser ruptured at 10:20 p.m., unleashing up to 30 tons of gas per second into the fire. Claymore's oil line exploded half an hour later. By then, the Inferno had grown unstoppable. The heat from these ruptures vaporized steel and drove rescue vessels away. Every minute, the unchecked flow made Piper Alpha less survivable. Operators on Tartan and Claymore hesitated, trapped by procedures that demanded certainty and authority in a situation where both had vanished. The system had no answer for silence. No one wanted to risk shutting down the North Sea's main arteries without an explicit order. In the end, the pipelines only stopped when the platform itself collapsed, taking with it any chance of rescue for the men still waiting above the flames. The disaster was not just a failure of engineering or individual judgment. It was paralysis by design, written into the rules that governed every action that night. Smoke pressed against the doors of the accommodation block while alarms wailed and the heat crept closer. The evacuation plan, drilled into every man, ordered them to muster in the living quarters and wait for rescue that would never come. The public address system had failed. Helicopters circled at a distance, kept at bay by a wall of fire and toxic air. No escape route remained. Lifeboats were unreachable, and the decks outside were already burning. Inside, men clung to routine, trusting that help would arrive. They died in darkness, asphyxiated by smoke, some still wearing life jackets, their bodies later found in the corridors and cabins that were supposed to be safe. Others refused to wait. Driven by the roar of the flames and the sound of steel buckling overhead, they smashed windows and crawled onto ledges. The only way out was down, a 175-foot drop into the black, freezing sea. 61 men survived by breaking every rule they had been taught. They hit the water at terminal velocity, bones shattered, lungs burning from the cold. Some never resurfaced, but those who lived carried with them the knowledge that obedience meant death. The system had demanded order, and survival required rebellion. Lord Cullen's inquiry ran for 180 days, sifting through testimony and evidence with forensic detachment. The verdict was unambiguous. Piper Alpha's safety management was fundamentally flawed. Cullen listed 106 recommendations, each a response to a failure laid bare by the disaster. Oversight of offshore safety was stripped from the Department of Energy and handed to the Health and Safety Executive, breaking the old conflict where production and regulation shared the same desk. Every North Sea operator was now required to submit a safety case, proving risk controls before a single barrel could flow. Yet the search for justice ended at the corporate level. No individual was prosecuted. Occidental Petroleum paid civil settlements and collected a record insurance payout of £1.7 billion, the largest man-made loss of its time. Families gathered at the Granite Memorial in Aberdeen, reading the names of 167 dead. The system reformed, but the dead remained unavenged. The inquiry delivered a new regime for safety, but the question of accountability was left deliberately unanswered. No one was prosecuted for Piper Alpha. Today, offshore safety rules bear its scars, and in every industry where obedience outweighs questioning, the same equation lingers. When survival demands breaking protocol, the system itself stands condemned. The true cost is measured in lives, and the verdict remains unfinished.